Welcome to the Catholic Mom Lenten Book Club. I am joined today by Samantha Stevenson, who is the author of our book that we'll be doing, The Bellbind Letters Inside the Devil's Plan for Your Motherhood, out for our Sunday visitor. Samantha is a Catholic Mom contributor, and we met in person last year at the Catholic Mom Contributor Retreat. And the minute Samantha started to speak about this book, The Bellbind Letters, I was like, oh my gosh, you need to be one of our Catholic Mom book clubs for the year. And here we are. It feels like that was like a million years ago. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk about the book.
It is so good. So good. Like, I never technically read the Screw Tapes letter. I listened to it with John Cleese's voice, which was just, it was actually a cassette from the library that I used to play and drive around and listen to. And it was so good.
He's a killer narrator. There's like clips of it on YouTube now. It's really good.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find the actual whole thing since then. So what was your motivation for writing the Bellvine letters?
So it really started out, my husband and I love the Screw Tape Letters, love C.S. Lewis, and we would read the Screw Tape Letters. I say every Lent when Screw Tape didn't get the best of us, because we haven't done it every Lent, but we just kind of developed this shorthand as spouses whenever we needed to challenge each other lovingly, and we could kind of hear temptation in whatever it was we were voicing. We had this shorthand of like, I think that's Screw Tape talking. And so we still say that to each other. And I say that to friends too, lovingly, because it's a good way to kind of make the point.
Yes.
And you kind of instantly know, if you're familiar with Screw Tape, what's going on. And at one point, I think it was about probably five years ago, because it was when we first moved to Idaho, from California, I was invited to write a testimonial for our Idaho Catholic Women's Conference about why people should come to the conference, which is great. But the only things that were coming into my mind were all of the excuses, or the things that come into your mind of, oh, I can't do this because we call it, sometimes my husband and I call it the case of the twos, like to this, to that, can't, why not? And as those were running through my head, I was thinking, oh, that's Screw Tape talking. So then I started to write it down, and that was really the first letter. It's still up on their website. I guess they like it. They use it still, to get people to think about, like, how are you tempted to not come, and who would that make happy, and how are some ways that you might be invited to kind of put that mirror up, because fiction really, it kind of lowers our defenses, and we're able to see ourselves through this mirror of something that's not real, but it somehow becomes more real by listening to this story or reading the story. And so that's kind of how it came to be. And ironically enough, I didn't end up going to the conference that year.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up staying home, and I took care of him and the kids, and that was probably for the best, but I still don't know, was it, or should I have gone? But it just goes to show, like, even when you can see the temptations and you understand, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you recognize that's how it's working, that you're going to be able to always avoid them. I mean, that's why we need grace to rely on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump into letter 1 through 6. We're going to try to get through as much of it as possible. And what I really loved about this, and why I think it's such an important thing for us to read, is that it's so subtle. Like, the devil is not going to use tactics that, as you write, like, he's not going to do things that make you notice, oh, I feel like, this is temptation, or this is the enemy, or this. It's like usually so subtle, that you barely realize it's happening, and often you're collaborating and you don't even realize it. You're like, oh, wait a minute. So I love that we're going to dive a little bit deeper and really get us thinking about what's going on in our life, and what how we kind of can collaborate, and how we can really, especially this Lenten season, make decisions to follow Christ. It is very hard, I have to say, to read this in reverse.
Oh yeah.
You're
It is tricky. It's kind of icky to write some of the things because it is so opposite to get into that mindset.
yes.
Lewis, I think I remember reading that he said that it was really difficult for him and it was really troublesome, and he didn't write a follow up because it was so terrible. I didn't have that same experience when I was writing it, so I don't know what that says about me. But I felt it. I thought it was really freeing to be able to kind of see one, the way that these temptations play out in my heart, in friends' hearts, things that people have shared with me, but then also to see just how much Satan hates the beautiful things and the good things. And that's so, I find it really empowering to look at things from that perspective and say, wow, if there's this much force against me going to confession, if there's this much power behind trying to keep me from these simple little loving things, then how much more does that mean I need to respond to God's call to do that and call on his
Yeah.
grace for that?
It's so relatable. I think every woman who reads this will see themselves here in some place, if not, like in my case, seeing myself in multiple places. So let's jump in. Letter 1 is on snatching souls.
Mm.
It tells us a little bit about what we might find here, what we should maybe be thinking about. And then if you're listening live and you have any questions for Samantha, or you want to just share some of your thoughts, that some of the discoveries you had in the chapter, please feel free. Just put them in the comments and we will see them.
Yeah. So, chapter 1 or letter 1, there's this line in here where the senior demon, Boomslang, is advising Belvine, the junior demon, a slow and steady effort can lull even the most devout of souls into indifference and tarnish any resemblance she might now bear to that most hideous of images, meaning Christ, that we're made in the image of God. And I think that sometimes, like you said, we think of temptation in these big, overt ways, but it really um, it behooves Satan to trick us into being really subtle with the temptations, because as long as we don't notice, then and we don't wake up to it, then we're more likely to go along with it. And one of the things I wanted to do, setting up with the first letter, is make a contrast with the character in the Screwtape letters. The character is a newly converted Christian, and he's a man. And the way that the temptations for somebody who's just joining the faith, they are so universal, but at the same time they're going to be really different than somebody who's been persisting in the life of faith for a while. And so I wanted to set that up and just show that this is going to be specific to a woman's heart and going to be about somebody who's been in the faith life for a while, because that's the character, that's hopefully who the ideal reader of the book is, and who the character in the book who's being tempted is.
One of my favorite, I guess, 2 sentences is a little bit further down from there. There's a special kind of sweetness about the business of luring a blazing soul into waters of tepidity. It will require a full wearing down of her fever. Oh my gosh, I can read big words, but I can't say them. Endless, and I'm going to struggle this entire book club because you use really beautiful big words. Anyway, endless distractions, circled, and worldliness, fanning of old resentments, yes, please, and bolstering of any lingering pride. In short, anything that makes her forget her love of the enemy, which of course is God in this case, even for the smallest moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mic drop. Like, this is my life, right? Like, I'll even start praying, and I find myself distracted and thinking like something will remind me of somebody, and instead of focusing on God and bringing that person to God, I start replaying the tapes of conversations with that person, which completely takes me away from God. And so,
But I like you said, instead of praying for it, so if you can become aware of it when that's happening, distractions in prayer, they're not always bad. I've heard spiritual directors say
good
that
point.
sometimes the distraction in prayer is like the meat of the prayer that the Spirit's bringing to you to. I know you think you want to talk about this today, but we're going to talk about this. And maybe that's a cue to pray for that person. So that's a good response, to just and not beat yourself up about it. When you do start playing those tapes in your head, just say, "Oh, look, Lord, I'm doing it again. Do you still love me? Can we pray about this?"
See, and that's the thing, is that I have to hand it over.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think there's also a little bit. I mean, you can't go too far into that memory and obviously become resentful or angry. But I think there's some healing in that when you sit with that memory with Christ. Just remember to
Mm-hmm.
include Him in it. That is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes where I fall short. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's a huge gift. I think anytime you're struggling with anger or pain with someone is to sit with Jesus in it and invite him into that, Jesus the healer. And um, especially when someone has hurt us, it's hurt people, and so to try to sit with
mm,
Jesus and ask him to, we can't love that person, like we can't, we're not enough to just say, I can't love this person, Jesus, you love this person through me, you love this person in me. And I found for me, that's a lot of healing happens in my relationship with that
yeah.
person. He shows up when he's invited. He takes everything you give him and he runs with it and is able to kind of transform that experience in your heart.
One of my favorite quotes from Alexander Pope is to err is human, to forgive is divine. And I think that says so much about the power of healing has to come from God. Like we
Mm-hmm.
can't do it without Him. It's a divinity, it's a grace to let some of
Mm-hmm.
that resentment go. But the fact that the devil will use it to distract you from bring you further away, because part of we know as our Father is we cannot be forgiven until we forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So to sit with that that fan that resentment keeps us from forgiving and moving on from that. Or you have to move on. You don't have to reconcile, but you need to forgive. But until we can bring God into that, we're blocking or hardening our hearts and hardening them against God, which
Mm-hmm.
I again is just like this little subtlety that unless you um, bring it to God, He's not. You're not going to hear Him revealing this to you. That this is really important for your soul to forgive, or to allow God to forgive through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The up
amen to that.
The other thing I liked was the habitual actions at the
Mm-hmm.
very last paragraph. It is urgent that we use every means possible to separate her from the habitual actions that stroke these affections. And I circled habitual actions because I thought about how these habitual actions can be ones that bring us closer to God, and there
Mm-hmm.
can be the ones who bring us further away from God. And you do talk about
Right.
that a little bit later in some of the chapters.
Yeah, when whichever habits we adopt, those become like I think it used the image of the wheelbarrow with the furrows, and you travel the same path over and over again, and it creates this rut where you can't get out of. And so, for better or for worse, right? You want to be, if you're going to mass every week and you're in a place where you're distracted or in a lot of pain, but whatever's going on, if you have that habit, it's going to be just built in to continue going to mass. But if it's something else, like if it's a continual, oh, I'm just going to tell a little lie, just going to tell a little lie, I'm just going to continually tell these little lies, and then before you know it, you can't tell the difference between a big lie and a little lie. Sometimes we don't even can't even remember the difference between our lies and the truth because we've worn that path so well we can't see over the walls.
One of my favorite Casting Crown songs has it's called a slow fade, and it
Mm.
talks about that slow fade, like from the behavior that doesn't seem so bad to full on sin, like the more serious part of a sin. It's all sin, but the more serious part.
Mm-hmm.
If you're joining us live, feel free, please, to put a comment here for Samantha, ask a question. with Samantha Stevenson, and we're looking at her book, The Bellbind Letters Here for Lent on Catholic Mom. We're really always happy to have you with us. And if you are listening to this and we're not live, please still feel free to leave comments. We'll be meeting with her every Wednesday up until Holy Week, and we'll revisit them and look at them over the week, and Samantha can answer them when we're back together. Since we have 6 to go through, I will move us on to chapter 2 or letter 2. This is again the new demon and the trainer demon writing back and forth to each other like it is in the screw tape letters. And now this is on prayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on page 27, there's the reminder. He says, "So I remind you, the safest path to hell is the gradual one. No need to engage the patient in grave sin if mere distractions will do." And this is a callback to a line from the screw tape letters, the original, because I just think that it's so brilliant and so true. If he can distract us from whatever it is that we're supposed to be doing, as long as we miss the mark, that's sin. And so it doesn't have to be these there's actually that letter is John Cleese on YouTube, and it's, if you can, go listen to it, because it is really chilling to hear that description of just spend your time in, or get her to spend her time in these trivial vanities, that in unreality, in things that don't matter. I think it's the original screw tape, but he says something like spending his time.
Oh, Samantha will be right back. I know she can hear me. We've been having a little connectivity problem. See, she came right back.
Neither as he ought, like not doing. Oh, is it not working?
Okay, now that you can start there. Yeah, there you go.
Neither as he ought, nor as he liked. So the idea is you get caught up, and I find myself, I'm guilty of this on the internet all the time, right? Like, I didn't spend my time doing what my duty was. And also, it was like a soul-sucking doom scroll type of experience. And I think that is the absolute epitome of this modern application. That obviously C.S. Lewis was experiencing it back then. They didn't even have the internet back then, but still falling into trivialities and things that don't matter.
Well, we know that St. Paul in Romans 7, so it's been around for a while, because I do the things that I don't do, and I don't do the things that I want to do, like that I ought to do, kind of thing. I had to laugh because I hadn't even noticed as I was reading this chapter that I had woken up at 6:30 in the morning. At 7:55, I'd only read a page and a half. Do you know why I'd only read a page and a half? Because something dinged on my phone. And at some point between 6:30 and I'm guessing 6:35, I started to scroll and look at something, and it didn't even dawn on me until I got back to reading. And I was like, oh, well played, Lord. Well played. Like, that was a coincidence, not by accident. Okay, then. It's so easy, right? I had said for Lent, too, that I was not going to put my phone in my prayer corner. And yet there it was. And it did its job.
Yeah. They sneak up on you. I mean, they're engineered to do that, right? It's in their financial best interest to keep our attention there. And
yes.
We are the product. So.
And it's worse when it's your job. Like, I work in social media. Like, right. My job is, digital media. So I justify it by saying I'm just working, and I do it for a Catholic organization. So I'm doing it for God. And it's like, no, Allison, right now, God wants your attention. And that's what's number one of importance. But it's so easy to, get ourselves off track. I just want to say, too, I'm seeing like a lot of people showing up. This is fantastic. Please feel free. If you have any questions for Samantha, or you just want to share something yourself that you read in the Bellbind letters that really struck your heart, and you want to share it with everyone that's listening and with us tonight, please throw it into the comments. They will show up here for Samantha and I to see and to discuss. We'd love to hear from you.
There's also on page 27 at the very bottom, He says, you can feed your patient any number of inputs, and they can even be directly about prayer or motherhood or any of the sort of things that will make her feel her time has been edifying and well spent. Um, Moving on, just even when the stream of the steady stream of content is about the enemy himself, any of it that may leave your patient to raise her consciousness to the enemy, that is the only real danger. So this idea of we can be taking in and consuming things that are good and beautiful, but it's really about where they lead us. So do they lead us to just click on the next thing, click on the next thing, click on the next thing, and then our attention stays at this level? Or
Mhm.
is it leading us to Christ? Because even if it's the best content in the world, if it's not actually leading us to relationship, then it's just a distraction from what we're supposed to be doing.
And I literally laughed out loud when I got to the top of 28. I have told the story many, many times of when I first reverted back to the faith, and I did Bible study, and I would be with my Bible and my journal and my Bible study book, and I would be all engrossed, and one of my sweet little babies would come up, and I would lose my mind telling them, "Can you not see that I am busy?" And I would absolutely go, let me see, get outraged at the interruption of her children. I was like, oh my gosh, Samantha, were you in my house 10 years
Mhm.
ago, 20 years ago, watching me?
Nope,
Little
just my house. It's the same at my house.
I mean, of all the things I could have been doing that I should not have been getting angry with my children and for interruption, it would be Bible study. And that's exactly what I would do. I literally laughed out loud. Said, yep, done that. Yep, done that.
It's hard to be interrupted, though. But I heard somebody once compare the interruptions in motherhood, especially with little kids, because you're going to get interrupted all the time with the little
Yeah.
ones. The big ones too, but it's a lot when they're little. And they compared it to the bell of the monastic bell. Whatever you're doing, when you hear that monastic bell, you
Oh,
stop
that's
work
cool.
and you move and you go to your prayer, or you go to the next portion of the day, and that's just whatever you had planned for yourself. That is the call for the moment. And so that's what I tried to do and fail to do in those moments of interruptions. A lot of the times is just say, okay, this is God's will for the present. Whatever I had planned for myself is not what God had planned. What I have to do right now is help this child to go to the bathroom, even though she can do it by herself. I'm just going to
Yeah.
help her because this is what she needs. This is God's will for me right now.
And I can only hope. I mean, my kids are grown now and they still like me. So I'm going to just hope that I answered lovingly and less, and did what, like you just said, did what needed to be done in that moment more often than I got aggravated that they were interrupting me. And I think that is a really great lesson, is that it's not about perfection. You
Mhm.
know, it's you're going to make mistakes. Every mother is going to make a mistake, and I think that's also the enemy. And I think again that comes into a later chapter. But when we decide I have failed, I'm never going to do this right, and we get so discouraged
Mhm.
instead of just starting over again. And one of the things I'm so grateful that the Lord taught me very early in my motherhood was to apologize to my children
Mhm.
and just be honest. Like, that was really bad behavior of mommy. I should put myself in timeout. But or I have put myself in timeout when they were little. But just to be honest, be like, I'm really sorry, apologize, admit what you did wrong. I'm like, and I'm gonna try harder tomorrow. And even in asking my children to help me, like, what can mommy do tomorrow that would have been better in that situation, and just kind of talking it out, because you're teaching them conflict resolution. You're teaching them how to respond with hope in
Right.
situations instead of being discouraged.
Yeah, I mean, I think modeling that humility, sometimes, God's going to bring something good out of all of our mistakes. And sometimes that might even be better because they're going to mess up and have mistakes. So to be able to say, okay, this is okay. Mom makes mistakes and this is how you handle it. And I watch that, and be able to model that is good. Another thing too, that a spiritual director once told me to remember, that I try to keep in mind, is that God is outside of time. So
Mhm.
even though you made that mistake in time, you can pray anytime looking back and say, Lord, please make up for what I lacked in that moment. Please make that better. Please repair that. And he can do that because he is outside of time. So we're just because we have this thing in the past that we're so worried about or guilty over or beating ourselves up about. One, he can bring good out of it. And two, he's not limited by time the way that we are. So we can
I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that's one of the greatest things somebody taught me, the same thing, Samantha, that I can pray for myself in the past. I can pray myself for in the future. And I think that's one of the reasons or the ways I've been able to stay so faithful is because I had these, and I love you going to talk about retreats. You go on the retreat, you get the mountain high, you get the retreat high, and then you come home and you fall off the wagon, so to speak. But once somebody gave me that advice, I started to pray for my future self as well as my past self. My past self to not beat myself up, and that's where regret comes in, right? That's where despair lives. And in my future self, just asking the Lord to keep me faithful when I start to fade, to just ask for that grace in the future so that I could always stay and remain faithful. And I believe, honest with my whole heart, that's why I've been able to stay so faithful to Christ. Not perfect, but faithful. Okay, let's go to my favorite topic next, letter 3, on screens.
On screens, yes.
On screens. Oh.
Yeah, I feel like this one should be longer for like the amount of time and anguish that I have had struggling with this issue. But it does come back a few times in the book. But yeah,
That's very funny. Yeah, that's a very. It's funny that it's a very short letter, but you're right. It does come back quite a few times because I think it's very indicative of the world we live in. They're not going anywhere. There's even more and more pull for them and what's on them.
yeah, and I think too. There's the issue itself, and then there's what Satan can do to get you to beat yourself up about the ways that you screwed up with it, and that get you to go off track, and then as soon as you realize you've gone off track, rather than allowing you to have self-compassion for yourself and to just ask for grace and do better, no, we're going to keep you like mired in this guilt and torment and keep you ruminating over everything negative. And when it's so easy. It's so easy as looking to Jesus and putting your arms up and saying help. But as long as he can keep you from doing that, then you are stuck in just a different type of sin.
This sentence is so beautiful in a powerful way. We want her to feel the pangs of regret to the point of self-loathing, whilst never admitting to herself the possibility of real change. I have this so underlined, like triple underlined, because there's just so much packed into that, like that pangs of regret. Like for Lent this year, I actually teased that I was giving up regret this year. Like I'm not regretting anymore, right? Like the past is the past. I can't go back there. I can only, like, I love that. Like I said earlier, pray for that person to the point of self-loathing, like how much we can despise ourselves, like to the gut in your stomach of like, oh, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I did that again, or I can't, I want to redo, but I can't, that's not how life works. And just the most important part about what God has to offer us is the mercy and the fact that he makes all things new again. Including us and our mistakes. So that sentence is just, I want it like on a t-shirt or
I don't know. It might not come off the right way. Somebody's just seeing you passing. But yeah, I mean, and it's not just about screens. Like that applies to anything where we're ashamed of something that we've done or embarrassed. My husband and I have these recurring memories that we'll talk about, with each other because we're spouses and we can do that. But we'll say, oh, I'm having that same memory is coming up again. And I'm stuck in this thing where I'm thinking about it again and again. And so this is that. Okay, yes, there is real pain to that memory, but without discounting that, where do we go with it now? Do we stay stuck in the pain or do we ask for help? Do we ask for healing?
It's beautiful. And then this at the end, if you can stir up any lingering resentments or difficulties in the behavior of the children, all the better. It's like, that's the beauty of motherhood, right? Like it's not just us, it's these little people, and I'm sure fathers have that same. But I feel like mothers, we just feel so responsible for who they are and what they're doing, and like if they're misbehaving, it's just another layer of, what did I now, what, like they're acting this way because of what I did, or
Yeah.
never about like what they're actually feeling and that they're own human beings. No, it's all about me and what I did wrong as a mom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Always ruminating on that.
It's like my word of the year. I don't think it's supposed to be a negative word of the year. That's become, it's become my room with my word of the year. All right, so chapter or less a letter 4 on rest.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh her soul towards something far less sustaining.
Yes. Yeah.
So what,
I was trying to think if it was this one that was originally, yeah, I think this is the one that was the first letter I wrote. It's reworked to make sense
okay.
in the context of the story, but originally this was the one that I wrote for the retreat. Just trying to tease out all of those things that I think will satisfy me, that are anything but what will actually satisfy. So if you can chase anything else, and that's like a lot of it is just looking at virtue is the midpoint between two extremes. So if Satan can't tempt you to one extreme, that's fine. Then the tempter says, let's go to the other extreme, whichever one, as long as you're not, in the middle where the virtue is. It doesn't matter if it's this extreme or that extreme. Either of them will do as long as they're not the middle.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it. And isn't it funny the fact that you wrote it for a retreat, for a conference, that it's the things that we want to do that are good for us and the things that we feel guilty putting ourselves first for, that the tempter definitely jumps in. He's like, oh, this is fertile ground. I do not want her knowing more about Christ. I do not want her building her relationship with Christ. So I'm going to completely throw every reason not to do. And that's not just a retreat. I've seen, like, I've been running Bible studies for over 15 years, and I've seen so many say, oh, I would love to join your Bible study, but I'm just, too busy. Like it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, one night a week. And I do mine online, just to make it easier for the women to attend. But it's so amazing to me how many excuses we make to
Yeah.
not be
Or
there.
just like there's things that we have to do. There's a lot of, when you think about mom guilt, I can't do that because I have to be doing this for my kids. But it's like, you don't really feel mom guilt when you're cooking for them. You're not probably paying that much attention to them. Maybe there's a mom guilt, like I should be cooking with them. But, you're not really paying that much attention to them when you're folding the laundry. When it's something that has to be done, it's not an issue. But if it's something that feeds your soul and allows you to be more there for your kids, maybe you're a painter or you do ceramics or you're running, and these are the things that refresh you and let you be more you, so you have more, they fill you up so you have more you to give to your family. But that's not the way we see it. It's like, oh no, I can't possibly give myself permission to do that thing. That's selfish. And then we tell ourselves that, or Screw Tape tells us, Bellbine tells us, that's selfish. You can't do that. You can't take time for that. Only laundry.
Because laundry is so therapeutic and helpful. I actually, I ended up getting tendonitis when my kids were little, and I used to do daycare, for changing all the diapers and folding all their little clothes. I ended up with tendonitis in my wrist. I'm like, wait a minute, like
I
that's a
believe
lot
it.
of stuff, right? Like I needed to take some self-care and let somebody else do the laundry. The last sentence, is really thought-provoking. Only then it is safe to allow her to believe that she ought to withdraw physically when the cause is some superficial act of self-care and nothing that might truly feed her emaciated spirit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because there are all of these little things where it's like, oh, as long, like two extremes, right? Either you can't take time for yourself, or no, you have to have time for yourself because these draining little monsters are sucking out your soul and you need to get away. And then okay, then we're twisted to the point where when we go away and have our time, it's not really refreshing. It's soaking in all this resentment, and and seeing them as a problem rather than, no, this is me taking a reasonable amount of time to feed my soul. But if you can get off track, I mean, it's either way, either
Yeah.
opposite end of the spectrum. If you just get off track a little bit, and that's the other thing too, is like, you don't have to be all the way at the end of one spectrum. It's just take a couple of steps off the path, just a couple, because then you're not where you're supposed to be. Then you're missing the mark.
Yeah. I also love how each letter ends with love and venom.
Yeah. Yeah, Boomslang is the name of a snake.
Ah.
So it's actually kind of cool because the snake is very, very poisonous, to the point where if you get bit, they have to not only give you anti-venom, but you have to have a blood transfusion in order to survive. Like, you need somebody else's blood to come into you and help you survive. And so when I was looking for name, I fell in love with the symbolism there of, we need to have Jesus's blood come in and replace what's in us so that we can survive the poison of this sin that's coming into us from the snake.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. And then you said Bellbind is a intrusive
Bellbind is a demonic weed that
demonic.
is impossible to get out of the garden. If you pull the weed out, it grows back more heads, like a hydra, that mystical creature. If you it the roots spread, it's like one of those ones it's called a rhizome or something. It spreads underground. It can live up to 30 feet underground, and it will travel. So it will travel under concrete and then come up on the other side of the concrete. So if you pull it, you're getting more of it in your garden. And the way that it works as a weed is what's on the cover. This is the flower. And so those
Mm-hmm.
seeds are viable for like 7 years or something like that. So the seeds could just be laying there for 7 years and still take hold and sprout. But you can kind of see these like tendrils on the cover a little bit. It's that they wind their way around your plants. So if you're growing things that you want to have in your garden, you kind of can't pull out the weed because it wraps around and it chokes it out. And in commercial agriculture, if you get bellvine in your field, it can reduce your yields by up to 50%. So it's just kind of this image of this impossible to get out temptations that wrap themselves around you and strangle out all the good that you're trying to do and all the fruits of the spirit that should be coming forth in your life, but can't because you're tangled up in this. And it's that idea of letting the weeds grow up with the wheat, because you don't want to pull out the good. So those are the symbolism of the names of the demons.
Those are amazing. I'm usually like a Google queen, and I didn't even think to look them up. So I'm glad I didn't, because your explanation was way cooler. That's just, we think that writers just kind of like, oh, that name sounded good. No, this was really thought out, and that's pretty amazing.
Well, there were a few names that were thrown out there, and then some of the other names, there are other demonic characters that are kind of thrown in through the letters. Those were other possibilities, but ultimately those were the two. And I just really like the symbolism, and I like the way they sound too.
Yeah,
That was a factor for sure.
they sound really good, and the idea of the blood transfusion needed to survive is amazing. And I didn't even, as you were saying it, I still wasn't putting the idea that we needed Jesus's blood. So I'm glad I read this with you, because now I'm like, oh wow, that's incredible.
Perfect.
So letter 5 is on consumerism.
Yes. This one, for me, it comes right after the letter on the retreat. And I noticed that one of my recurring temptations is, every time I go to a retreat or a conference, I want to fill my bag full of things, because I have this fervor, and instead of directing that fervor towards my habits coming home, I'm like, I'm going to direct this fervor towards like redecorating our house with all this beautiful religious imagery. I want to, and so it's taking this beautiful mountaintop experience that I have, and then directing it towards amassing of stuff, which is obviously a lesser good. I mean, it's great if those things, those things, sacramentals are beautiful and important if they're reminding us to get to prayer. But if they are becoming the end in of themselves, then they're getting in the way. So it really is all about how you're being distracted. And so that for me was kind of the origin of what I was thinking when I was writing this one.
And we set, as somebody who's done many retreats and conferences, we kind of set them up for you to, like, we invite and we ask vendors to come, and they help sponsor and make the conference happen. And so we line the hallways with all this stuff for you to, we make it easy for, and you feel like you need it all, like some memento to remind me of that lesson when I get home. And I laughed because I actually wrote a book on sacramentals, and I was like, that's funny. And but like one medal is enough. Like, you don't need a medal of every saint in your saint posse. Like, one is fine. One
Well,
rosary is fine.
and it's all about the interiority, right? Because there's
Right.
nothing wrong. It's great to have those vendor fairs. I would love to be spending my money and voting with my dollar and paying these amazing Catholic people who are evangelizing with their lives, with their craft. They're using their gifts to praise God for, like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
But
right.
here, this is just me shining the light on, well, here's a way where that goes wrong, or here's what goes wrong in me sometimes when I am going on the right path, and then here's how I get derailed. And I'm probably not the only person who experiences that, so hopefully.
So that's a good point, that it's about their intention, like the purity of your intention. It's about like your mindset. Because this is Lent, right? And I was just talking to a friend this week about how we're both kind of using Lent as a diet plan. And like, that's not what Lent is about. So I brought it to my spiritual director, and I kind of explained why I was doing it. Like, I really need to learn temperance, and I feel like the Lent has this extra bit of grace in the season. And so he's like, well, God wants what's good for you. So obviously it's not bad that you're trying to be healthier and take care of your body. But he's like, think about what your intention is. Is your intention truly to gain in this virtue? Or is your intention because you want the scale to go down? He's like, that's what you really need to bring to God and say. So as you were speaking, I was kind of thinking, right, it's about my intentionality. What is it? Like, is it bringing me closer to God, or is it distracting me from getting closer to God? It's a great point. I get it. I also loved this line: fingering that woman's blasted chain of beaded filth. Fingering that woman's blasted chain of beaded filth.
Yeah, that was one of my dear friends. She said that was her favorite line in the whole book.
Oh my gosh.
So that would be one of the examples where things are in reverse, and it feels, wrong to write something like that. But I think it just shows like the strength of the language, and the anger, and the opposition shows the power and the beauty of the rosary and of Mary's intercession for us.
I think that's why I loved it so much. We're talking with Samantha Stevenson, and we're reading the Bell Bind Letters for Lent here on Catholic Mom. And I think this is why I loved it so much, is because it really shows how much the devil truly hates the rosary. He hates Mary, because who wants to be humiliated by a young girl? Who wants to see people growing in their faith, being drawn away, like out of his clutches by the power of this prayer? Because it is a powerful prayer, and it is. I work for Father Patrick Peyton's ministry, the Rosary Priest, and he called it the chain that binds heaven and earth. Like, it is our direct line to heaven. And I don't know about you, but I've had times in my life where I'm just so distraught I can't pray, but I
Mm-hmm.
can hold my beads, and I feel like that's prayer. Like
Yeah, I
there's
remember when I was in high school, I wasn't Catholic yet, but I was at a Catholic high school, and I remember my religion teacher talking about that specifically. She was saying, people say, "Oh, why do you have these memorized prayers? Like that's not a real prayer. Or that's you should be praying from your heart." And coming from a Protestant background, we had Our Father and things like that, but I was kind of sympathetic, like, "Oh yeah, I see how people might say that." And she said, you know when you have serious grief and you go through, or you're so angry at God, it's such a gift to be able
yeah,
to be in those real human moments and to have words that you can say that and so now as an adult, as a mom, I have definitely had those moments, and I think back to her saying that and I'm like, yeah, she was right. It was so true. Having these words that you memorized is a gift because you can't always come up with the thing. And it's what a gift to be able to have the words that our Lord gave to us. We have the words from Scripture, the mysteries of the Rosary. Sometimes I go through it and it's just going through it, but sometimes the where God takes that prayer is just so beautiful and very obviously not of me. But it's a beautiful, and because it just like kind of spontaneously happens, it is that beautiful gift of, wow, I didn't think I never thought about the ascension in this way before. I never thought about the grief of the disciples or the betrayal they might feel, like we just got you back and now you're going again. Different things like that will come up
yeah.
through meditating on those mysteries.
That is a good point. And that can be, again, really hard, I think, sometimes as you're praying the rosary, again, the distractions that take place. But I love what you said earlier about sometimes those distractions are exactly where God wants you to be. Um, and sometimes I think when I start to meditate, and I'm actually thinking about the actual mystery, but I feel like I'm taking too long with it. It takes me an hour to pray a rosary sometimes, and telling my spiritual director, he's like, "What? Like an hour? Like what are you doing? Why does it take you an hour?" And I realize it's because sometimes I just start to pray and I just enter in this discussion with God. Um, Usually about the rosary, but sometimes completely not. And I'm not going to feel bad anymore when I do that. As long as
Yeah,
I'm not.
there's this book, I'm blanking on the name of the author, who's like a very famous theologian. It's just called On Prayer, and it's one of Bishop Barron's top 5 books, which is why I read the book. So if you look up his top 5 books and it's On Prayer, that's who wrote it. But the very beginning just advises, like, when you're praying and you get to a point, like maybe you're meditating on scripture or something, and something strikes you, just stop there,
Mm,
just pray with that, and just stay with that, even if it's 3 words into the scripture, and whatever that word is, what strict, like, stay there, stay in that moment. And that's some of the
mm,
best advice on prayer that I've ever gotten.
I
So it
love
sounds
that.
like you're really doing that in your rosary when you're you're having these conversations and you're staying in it, you're staying there, and I think that's beautiful.
Yes. And there's a big difference between distraction and prayer from my phone and distraction and prayer with a conversation with God. So um, I think giving ourselves a little bit of a break that the best analogy I can give is I used to be a preschool teacher, and I used to teach other people to be teachers. And I used to tell them, when you're reading a child's book, when you're reading a picture book with children, it's okay if you don't get to the end, because when I first started teaching, I was like, stop, like the kids were interrupting me. I would tell them to stop. I'm reading the book, right? And then as I seasoned as a teacher, I realized, no, that's the whole point of the book, was to have a conversation with the kids, was to see what they're thinking, is to get them engaged. So I learned that picture books can have bookmarks, and that's okay. And that's kind of how I feel about prayer. Like there's a distraction that's a productive distraction when you put a bookmark in the rosary and just talk to God.
Oh, I needed that so much. I struggle with that with my kids, of like, they're wanting to talk about, I'm like, I want to read the story and get to the end. And I think I do that in prayer with God too. Like, oh no, I know you want, but I want to get to the end of this. Like, this is what we're doing now. This is my agenda. No, it's not.
Well,
So
it's
I'll just be patient until I realize that's not how it's supposed to go.
There is a part of your brain though that wants to finish things. There is somebody say a sentence and they don't finish it, and you finish it in your brain. Like that's a psychological part of your brain. So, but there is this beauty to putting a bookmark um, in a book with children and in a rosary with the Lord. I'm writing that down because I'm going to put that in my next book.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Bookmark in your rosary. All
I mean,
right.
I used to do that naturally because I would pray the rosary like throughout the day, because
Oh,
I would
that's cool.
pray when, when the baby woke up, to whenever the baby was nursing. That would be like, okay, we're doing the first part in the first decade. Okay, now we're doing the next part. Okay, third nap, we're doing this. For a while, that's just how I got through the rosary, but now they don't nap anymore, so I have to figure out other times of the day.
Mm.
And then for a while it was like, oh, I have to pray the whole thing all at once. Like I'm used to doing one decade at a time. That's a lot.
Oh my gosh. I don't think the whole world takes an hour to do it. Like I laugh when Father Peyton says if you gave the Blessed Mother 15 minutes a day, that's how long it took him to pray the rosary. And I was like, wow. Like how fast was this man saying the Our Fathers and the Hail Marys? He got 15 minutes a day. That's pretty impressive. I get through 1.5 mysteries in
Yeah,
15
maybe
minutes.
if it's Father Mike Schmitz doing it, go really fast.
Or Mark Wahlberg on the Hallow app. Like nobody prays faster than that Bostonian. And I'm a Massachusetts person, so I get it. But I don't talk nearly as fast as he does. The other sentence I really loved in this was, "She must accumulate, but so you're talking about the things she's gonna pious books. Sorry, let me start at the beginning because this is so great, Samantha. The more you can clutter up her mind toward the amassing of various books, pious plastic, and devotional trinkets, the less space she will have for those things that pose a real threat. She must accumulate but never employ." And I was like, as I read this, I looked over at my stack of books and I thought, oh yeah, okay, I need to read more. It's really
Yeah, I'm
funny.
guilty of that also. Obviously, it's in the book.
Prayer cards and
Mm-hmm.
yep, I loved it. So I can really relate to that for sure. Anything of this is another great one. This will be even easier when she's removed from that loathsome environment from the retreat, filled with so many barriers to us, reeking of the stench of filthy virtues and the straining sound of voices offered in wretched, millowing praises of the enemy. It's just
That's
poetic.
That was, yeah, the mewling praise of the enemy. That was I think that was my editor, Elizabeth Scalia. She put
Oh,
that phrase in there because what I had was not as poetic. Same sentiment, but just not as. And she really got that line.
okay. Now this is making a lot of sense to me because it was one of her books, the Little Sins Mean a Lot, that sparked um, the book that I'm working on for our Sunday visitor. So it's just kind of this
Does
full
that one have a
circle.
title?
Hmm?
The book that you're working on, does have a title or working title?
It has a working title. Jesus didn't die so you could sin, but that seems a little harsh. So
So, you know what, though? Some people need the tough love. Some people respond. I was just talking about this. We were talking about with a friend about our women's conference that we have here. And we've been blessed to have wonderful speakers. So not to say anything against the speakers, but she was saying, she's like, I want somebody who's going to give me a challenge. Like every time it's all about like healing our wounds. And that's important, I guess. But I want, it's like the same thing every time. I'm tired of being told that I'm wounded and I'm broken. I want to like go get him. And she wanted, and I could relate to that too of like, let's have the healing too, but also maybe a kick in the pants sometimes. So, maybe, more of the suck it up buttercup approach to, to the spiritual life,
well, maybe
We need
we'll
both,
give
right?
Maybe we'll give the book a little bit more of a I'm thinking of some softer names, but the talks that I give in a conjunction will be Jesus did not die so you could sin. And it basically started with me praying the rosary and complaining. And it was Holy Week, and Jesus is like, I did not die so you could complain. And it was like, sometimes the voice is not yours because it's just cuts you to the core. Jesus is a lot, he's loving, he loves me, but he doesn't let me off the hook. And that was one of the moments where it was like, yep, I did
Yeah,
not
well,
die so you could
that's
do
like
all
a
this stuff.
very tough love. As a mom, I think you can relate to that, right? Like sometimes they just need to hear, listen, that's enough of that. Okay.
It
I
worked.
I put in the work so that you could exist, so be grateful for it.
I love that. Well, we're good. Only a few minutes left, so let's just look a little bit at chapter 6, vanity, before we bid goodnight. There's just so much good in here. Just oh my gosh, I think I had the entire chapter underlined. At some point, I was like, I got to stop underlining. I'm not going to know what was important.
Mhm.
Anything in particular you wanted to bring out for this chapter before we close?
I'm looking. I had a few things highlighted as well. Um, this one is another one of those things where it's both ends of the spectrum and virtue. I mean, virtue is always the midpoint. But if you think about vanity, we usually think about being excessively preoccupied with appearance. But the other end of that is excess rejection of attentiveness to our appearance, or like downplaying, taking care of ourselves, not, our body is not something to be tossed aside. Like what we have is a gift, and the way that we dress ourselves, the way that we care for, the way that we eat and care for, our body, we can only function if we give ourselves the nutrients that we need. We need sunlight, we need exercise, and sometimes we can go in trying to stay away from vanity, we can get off track by going to the other end of the spectrum and thinking like, I can't take time to exercise. That's vapid. Like that's not important. And so to recognize, no, that is important. It is important to care for ourselves. It is important to give ourselves the nourishment and the sunlight and the things that we need. And that's honoring the gift of the body and the gift of the life that God gave us. That's not being vain.
That's like one thing I could tell my younger self. I would tell myself to take better care of my body
Hmm.
because it ages and it is, you think it's going to just be young forever and you're going to have all that strength and your heart is never going to, never going to get high blood pressure or like all the little things that just kind of creep up. Um, I wish I had taken better care of my body. And I also wish I had done that as an example to my children.
I can relate to that just with going through chronic illness. Take advantage or take things for granted until they're gone, and you don't have enough energy to do the basic things. And then as I've healed and gotten a little bit better, oh, I've got a little one knocking on the door. But as I've gotten better, then I start to take it for granted again, and then let things slide, and then, oh, okay, God reminds me by letting me deal with certain issues again, certain pain. I gotta answer the
Well,
door.
we're at 9 o'clock, so their timing is absolutely perfect. But I am going to just give one little advice for anybody who, like Samantha and I, kind of goes in and out of the exercise kind of regime and kind of takes advantage is habit bundling. One of my favorite things.
That's
Walk and pray at the same time. Well, Samantha, thank you for joining us. I know she's just letting her little one in or telling her little one she'll be right back. We have really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this first 6 letters, this first 6 chapters. I look forward to the next 6 when we meet next week on March 4th. Again, come with your questions, come with your comments. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening to this afterwards, put them in there. I will go through them and bring them back to Samantha next week. Samantha, thank you so much. This book, The Bellbind Letters, is just incredible. Inside the Devil's Plan for Your Motherhood. And this is the perfect Lenten read. We'll see you next week, and we'll see all of you. God bless.
Thank you.